Bruckner. I am on the product marketing team at Conga, and I focus on our contract lifecycle management solutions as well as our contract intelligence solution. So I have been with Conga for about a year, in the software technology space for about 6 years. Prior to this, I was in invoice and payments and kind of that automation space, that procurement space. So I'll pass it over to Isabella.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline. Hi, everyone. My name is Isabella Lowe. I am a principal sales engineer here at Conga. I've been with Conga for a little over 8 years now, primarily working with our contract management solution. So I'm really excited to be here today, and at the end, kind of show a little bit of what we'll be talking about in action and what the product looks like. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Mitchell Brucker here with Slalom. I've been working in the QTC contract management space for a number of years. Actually, the last 2 years with Slalom. Prior to that, worked with Conga for a number of years, and then on the client side, implementing their technology.
And my name is Andy Lavelle. I too work for Slalom Consulting. I've been working within kind of the Salesforce space for the last 10 years with a focus on contract lifecycle management the last 6 years, particularly with Conga. So I'm excited to be here and share some information with everyone.
Okay, guys, before we get kicked off into today's program, we're going to jump in. First of all, thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves, but we're going to jump in with a poll to kind of get a pulse on where everybody's at in the process. It should take less than probably 30 seconds. We'll display the results, and then we'll jump back to the presentation. So I'm going to kick it off right now, so feel free to just jump in. It's multiple choice. Here you go. Just 4 quick questions.
Yeah, I'll talk it through so that way you guys can just kind of think about your answers. So do you have a contract lifecycle management system in place? This will kind of help us level set where we want to take the conversation today. And then do you have contracts auto-generated based on the terms of your transactions? Can you collaborate on contracts during negotiations, tracking edits in real time instead of saving multiple versions and emailing back and forth? And are contracts automatically stored in central searchable digital locations, including those contracts with wet signatures? So we'll give you guys just a little bit more time to put in your answers.
So I'm guessing for the first question, everybody's using Conga that says, yes, it's great. Yeah. Okay. So should I end voting and display the results for everybody?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so are these the final results on here, Colin?
Yep, these are the final results.
Awesome. So it looks like we have a little bit of a split on question 1, with a few folks looking to implement soon. So hopefully we can give you guys some good things to think about during your search. An even split on contracts auto-generated. Likely those using a CLM system they like so far. Even split. Okay, so we've got some opportunity there during negotiations and real-time collaboration. Some gaps we can help fill there, and then with a central repository. So we'll definitely be talking about a lot of these things you guys can consider, whether they're in your current solution or something you want to consider as you look at the vendors out there. And so I think we'll have Andy start it off first.
Yeah.
Get you up, Andy.
All right. So, as we saw, it's a bit of a split as far as who, some of you who already have a system and like it, and some who don't and are looking to expand their contracting process and automating it. So when it comes to when you're looking into that, you most likely have some sort of manual contracting process currently in state. And those processes can be very tedious, and they can be inefficient and not really provide a lot of visibility as far as contract data, and really visibility into where contracts are at within your process. This can lead to very drawn out processes with your contracting process, and essentially a lot of missed opportunities or things that fall through the cracks. So having that alignment with your business around where your contracts are, or when they're getting created, when they're getting modified, and when they're executed, is crucial in helping make your business process as efficient as possible. So some of the key things here are, one being your contract metadata. So having a single repository, something that Conga provides, is a centralized area where all your information on your contracts are being stored, as well as the actual document itself. This gives a lot of visibility for legal into those specific details on those contracts. They're able to understand, how many contracts they have in the pipeline, things that need to be managed by them. They're also able to pull metrics on that specific information to kind of look at all of your contracts across the board. So like a quick and easy example would be wanting to pull a report on all contracts that have payment terms above net 30. So having that metadata within the system provides a large array of reports that you can pull to better enhance your job as a legal person at your company, to pull that information and get the information that you need. One of those key data points is that contract status, and that one piece of information can provide a lot of value to your organization. It opens up the visibility of all your current contracts, whether they are active, whether they're in process, and where they're at in that process. So that gives legal the visibility into that, as well as sales. So as sales creates these contracts, they're able to see, when, let's say you have an extensive approval process with legal that involves multiple departments. It gives sales that visibility to see where that's at in the process, so they aren't constantly, pinging people to get updates on things, so that they can provide that to their client. The clause library also provides a lot of robust functionality. So with Conga, you're able to leverage this clause library to essentially standardize the clauses within your templates. And this gives you guys the ability to easily generate these contracts, while also having approved alternate versions of that clause language, to give that power to, you can give that power to sales, so that they have the ability to swap out specific clauses based on parameters and conditions that you set, or you leave it entirely up to legal and just give them that power to swap those out easily without having to reference external documents. It's all within the Conga tool, where you're able to easily access all those alternate versions. The last area here we wanted to focus on was approval workflows. So giving legal that ability to automate the actual approval process. So giving sales the ability to initiate that process, but giving the power to legal to set the parameters around automatically identifying key metrics that would need to trigger approval, let's say from finance or from other areas from within your organization that need to view this document, maybe provide edits or sign off on it prior to it getting sent to the client or getting sent off for signature. So Conga provides a robust ability to be able to identify that, being able to send those out in parallel or sequential to get all the correct parties involved to get that document approved and out the door as fast as possible. Can we go to the next slide, please? So with that, those are all key areas that can help automate your guys' system. How we sign off on smart businesses to ensure profitability. A lot of the key thing that's going to hold this together is a collaboration across teams. So collaboration across key teams like sales, procurement, legal, and finance. Having that collaboration allows a lot of your automations to be expedited, allows cohesion between the teams, and really streamlines your guys' process as you're moving these contracts from the initiation process to activation. One key part of that is that contract request process. So with Conga, you have the ability to create a easy way for, let's say, sales to initiate the request of that contract, but it also provides legal to provide the parameters as far as what information they need. So instead of dealing with a lot of back and forth between sales and legal on, what are the key data points of that contract, we can create the framework to require sales to have that information up front. So legal can get that, and they have everything that they need to, push the contract forward. Conga also gives the ability to provide more of a self-service model too. So depending on how you manage your contracts, a lot of times with contracts like NDAs, you may want a more self-service model, which allows legal to be out of the picture if obviously nothing is redlined or changed on that document. So this again provides the ability for legal and sales to work together to expedite things as fast as possible. Once that contract's generated, utilizing the Conga tool, we're able to pull in that data that we've worked so hard to get within that system, in that central repository, to pull that into the document. This saves a lot of time but for legal and sales when it comes to updating those documents manually. If we can automatically pull that data straight from the system, it also allows us to provide conditionality within the template, so we can include or exclude certain aspects of your document if the criteria that we set is met or not. And so this allows us to consolidate a lot of our templates into one sole template that is driven by the data that we are collecting prior to the generation of that document. As we move into actually negotiating with with the client, there may be redlining that happens. There may be approvals that get triggered, like I mentioned earlier. And with Conga, we're able to create the framework of that approval process. So once initiated, it happens in a orderly fashion, and we're able to track that document throughout that process and find out any sort of bottlenecks. With Conga's online collaboration tool as well, it allows multiple users to be within the document at the same time. So collaborating together to provide edits, flag specific areas of the template that are concerning, and discuss amongst each other without having to go back and forth with emails over a long period of time. And then ultimately this leads to the signatures and the activation of the agreement. So with key signature tools like Conga Sign, you can send that document out, get it signed by the counterparties, and get that document activated within the system. And then from there, you're also able to manage any sort of renewals and amendments as they come along, if those are the specific requirements around that specific document. So that kind of covers a lot of the key areas of that contract lifecycle management that Conga is able to help provide tools to bring that cohesion between your teams, that collaboration between your teams, so they're all working together in an efficient format without having to drag the process out through email or manually sending documents back and forth. With these tools, it allows us to really identify the bottlenecks within your guys' system. Areas like we see with the request process or with request approvals. General approvals and red lines are a big area that we'll often see bottlenecks. And with these tools, you're able to provide provide the means to get rid of those bottlenecks so that you have a easily flowing system that is efficient and productive. And the system also provides the ability to manage your external contracts as well. So this could be legacy files that you have, and the management of third-party paper. So third-party papers that you're receiving from your clients and managing them within the same kind of framework of your business process that's been created. And I think this is where I'll hand it over to Carolyn to talk about how we can leverage contract intelligence to manage and work with these external contracts.
Yes, thank you, Andy. So Andy took you through how you can streamline and standardize your authoring, your creating the contracts, negotiating them, and so forth. I want to talk more about contract intelligence. So as he mentioned, thinking about your third-party paper, your counter or your legacy contracts, any contracts acquired through mergers and acquisition activity, how to bring those into your CLM so that you can have the same oversight, the same visibility, and the same management of those contracts. So that is what contract intelligence does. It's used to bring all contracts in under management. Upon ingestion of these contracts into the CLM system, contract intelligence uses artificial intelligence, or AI, as you'll hear me refer to it today, and machine learning models, or ML, to analyze the contract documents, extract and transform the data, and tag it in the system so that it can be efficiently utilized going forward in searches, reporting, and alerts. So, what all of that is doing is it's providing you that clear visibility to the contract dates, terms, clauses, which of course is critical to maximizing revenue opportunities, controlling spend, and protecting against risk. So, we're going to talk more about each of those three pieces as this goes. But as I mentioned, contract intelligence, it's pulling the data from your contract documents. So think of documents stored in SharePoint files or maybe even stored in paper. It's pulling the data out of those documents, converting that to fields in your contract lifecycle management or CLM system that are searchable and can trigger alerts for your legal team or other departments to be able to act on that data, such as a renewal or termination notice date. And I'm going to kind of stick on that example here in a second. Decision makers cannot course correct unless these data points are captured during contracting, of course. So if your organization decided it wants to terminate a vendor contract, ideally you could be notified ahead of when that deadline to do that is. So often the exact termination notice date won't be in your contract, spelled out like that, for a simple like data extraction and tagging exercise. And that's when the converting or transforming the data comes into play. So contract intelligence will extract several data points that it needs to compute when that termination notice date is. These data points that it could be pulling out of the contract could be effective date, period, expiration date, current date, renewal type, renewal period, new expiration date, notice period. All of these multiple data points just to get to that one date that you really need to be able to do something about it. It does all of that for you so that you can take your time making the strategic decision of whether you want to terminate that contract or not. Contract intelligence, it also makes it possible for you to search across your database of clauses and contracts to find what you need quickly. So it's brought all of your contracts into one place for that central repository and made that repository smart for you to be able to type in natural language search, like you would type into Google, for example, to pull back exactly what you're looking for, not just find me all the contracts or clauses with a specific word in them, which would very likely pull back all of your contracts as they have a lot of similar legal language within them. So using like a smart search functionality, your search capabilities go that much farther and make you that much more efficient. And then beyond the smart search, the calculation of the data to populate the agreement record fields in your CLM, beyond the automated alerts that we just talked about, contract intelligence layered over your CLM system can also generate reports to give you clearer visibility into things that are impacting your business, such as cycle time reports, clause usage, and contracts with upcoming renewals. Clause usage reports, for example, is important for you to find your most used and negotiated clauses to save you time in the future as you update your clause library and templates. So contract intelligence, it's taking the clause paragraphs from your contracts, understanding the context of them. Even if, the paragraph's not labeled explicitly termination clause, for example, it's going to read that paragraph and deduce that that's what it is, and document it in your system so that it can be reportable. So, whether you're looking at a 5-page NDA that you authored a few years ago or a newly executed master services agreement on your supplier's paper, accurately extracting the full scope of the terms in there can be expensive, inconsistent, and requires skilled resources. So that's where you might want to turn to technology like contract intelligence. And then I will jump to the next slide. So, we just talked about why it's what it is. Now let's talk about why it's important. To start off, Harvard Business Review found that inefficient contracting processes can cause firms to lose between 5% and 40% of value on a given deal. That's pretty huge. To further that point, according to a survey conducted by Deloitte, risks associated with outdated contract management are as follows, as you'll see on that screen. So, unwanted termination or rollover of contracts, legal action and or breach of contract as a result of unrealized obligations, missing important dates and deadlines, regulatory fines, and definitely unclear roles and responsibilities slowing down the process. So, you've heard already about that front end of the contracting process, the authoring, the approval workflow, the negotiations. And then we talked about having that central repository, standardizing things, utilizing the alerts. Now, I also want to talk about mitigating risk. So, how can contract intelligence help you mitigate risk? It can actually identify and track the risk in those third party contracts that are inherently risky because they're not on your paper. You didn't come up with those clauses and terms that are in the benefit of your business. So what contract intelligence technology is going to do, it's going to identify that. It's going to score the terms based on how much they deviate from your standards that you've set up previously. Give them a risk score to alert you so that you can negotiate on those terms prior to signing the agreement. And it can also be smart enough to recommend more appropriate alternative terms for you to be able to redline in without having to do a lot of extra time figuring out what you might want to put in there. So this decreases the contract risk with those third-party paper contracts and speeds up that contract review process. And I will now jump into use cases here. So we talked about the what and the why and how it's enabling your organization to use your contract data for insights and action. Let's talk about these use cases that you see here on the screen. These top 4 are the most common ones that we see. Um, and some of these Isabella is going to actually go through once she jumps into the software. So managing renewals and termination dates is the baseline for most of our clients using contract intelligence. Understanding the fundamental terms for which result in who the parties are in the contract, what the contract's for, when it starts and ends, and what you must do to renew or terminate the contract. You can use this technology to extract and transform this information for you for each contract and update your agreement records in your CLM accordingly, trigger those alerts we talked about, and act on them and report on that information. M&A and financing. So when your business has an event such as the mergers or acquisitions or a round of fundraising, and you need to run due diligence through your current contracts, you need to be able to identify the risk, the exposure, and the revenue opportunities. Contract intelligence can highlight those important clauses such as assignability, audit rights, confidentiality, governing law, for example, for you to be able to review quickly and conduct that due diligence. And then moving down, contract intelligence can also help you more easily identify which contracts permit price increases at certain intervals of time, whether such increases are capped, and whether such increases require consent or contain particular notification requirements. Again, so you can more quickly and efficiently take action to increase your revenue opportunities. And then the final example here, contract intelligence can track and alert you to minimum purchase commitments, which is particularly important to companies that make physical things and was and still is a big issue from the supply chain impacts from the pandemic and the current market. So, those are the common use cases that we see. I wanted to talk also about some of the features that you should be considering as you look out for vendors in contract intelligence, and then some of these features being what Isabella is going to take you through in the software. So, accuracy. All contract intelligence tools are going to utilize OCR. Most are going to layer AI and ML on top of that. And a few will have human review capabilities to actually validate the data extraction and transformation accuracy. So, not only does this result in more accurate data for you now, but the human validation component also serves to train the ML models to continually improve over time. Mature technology. So AI is very hot right now with vendors adding it to their solutions left and right. And in your search, you want to consider how mature that technology is that they're offering. How long has it been available for, and how long have the ML models been trained for as they all get better over time, more accurate, more consistent over time. Centralized repository. So ensuring that the contract intelligence technology is layered over your contract lifecycle management solution so that you have a smart central repository to work from so that you can get the most out of it. And as we had talked about, so that you can be the most efficient trying to pull the information you need from your contracts and your clauses. Proactive alerts, smart search, customizable dashboards, and reports to be able to find that information in your smart repository about any agreement in seconds and then continue to improve your process, finding those bottlenecks that Andy talked about and be able to take action to improve those. And then finally, the feature you want to look for is its connectivity to other business systems. So, if your organization has a configure price quote system, does your contract lifecycle management system and your contract intelligence work with your configure price quote system, or your document generation system, or even your ERP and CRM? The less redundancy that you have to do here, the less duplicate work is going to also help you to be more efficient. So make sure that the technology you're seeking can connect to these other systems that you use day in and day out. What you see on the screen here, a Conga Contract Intelligence customer shared that on average, every single person on their North American legal team saved 4 hours a week of time from not having to search for and read through contracts manually. We hear that all the time from our customers that other departments are looking for them for quick answers about contracts that prior to contract intelligence they'd have to actually sift through or even outsource that to other attorneys to sift through or other contractors to sift through their information to find what these other teams need. And so, with this technology, it can be at your fingertips. So now that you've heard a lot, you've seen some screenshots, we want to actually get into the software. So I will pass it over now. We'll stop with the slides for a little bit, and we'll pass it over to Isabella, and she will jump right into our solution.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. All right. I'm going to start sharing my screen now, and we will jump into the demonstration. Okay. So from what we've been talking about today, using Conga as a single repository for your documents, storing those clauses and those data fields as well. For today's demo, I want to focus on that piece of how to automate that collection of information and the benefits of having all this data stored within Conga. So first, we're going to take a look at the intelligence tool, how we can import contracts, automate the extraction. And then with that data, we're going to walk through the smart search capabilities, reporting, and how we can create workflows and notifications from the data that is being stored from our contracts. So first, let's take a look at the intelligence tool. From here, we're going to go ahead and import a document from this dashboard. Go ahead and select our document here. So it can be any contract that you have that you want to import into the solution. The next screen will ask us to select the document type. So right now I have this set up for importing MSAs, but you can have it set up to be importing any other type of contract that you work with as well. And the reason why it's important to select the contract type here that you're importing is because the solution needs to know what collection of fields and clauses are important for you to be extracting from this document. For an MSA, you'll have a set of clauses and data fields. And then, for example, for an NDA, you might have a different set of fields and clauses that you might want to track. So I'm telling the solution this is an MSA. We're going to go ahead and select the automated extraction and then click that import button right here. So that automated extraction, not only is it going to import the contract document that we just selected, but it's also going to take the words and the phrases, the clauses from the Word document that you saw, and it's going to bring it into Conga as structured data, which can then be used downstream for things like workflows and notifications. So as you see here on our dashboard, we can check the status of each of the documents that we're importing into the solution. And once a document is ready for us to review, we can go ahead and click into that. And now on the screen, we can review all of the information that the contract intelligence tool has extracted from this Word document. So on the right-hand side, we'll be able to see all of the items that were found from the solution. And if I click into each of these items, so these items contain both data fields such as agreement end date, agreement start date, and it also contains clause types that we are trying to identify and extract from the document as well. So first, going through the fields, we have agreement end date. So it's tracked as December 31st, 2019, as you can see here on the left-hand side on the document. So whichever field that you're clicking on, it will also route you or redirect you to the area in the document in which they found that information. You can see the agreement start date and the agreement name. And now that we've seen the fields, let's go into the actual clauses that if it's extracted and identified as well. So one of the examples here, audit rights. We can see that this entire clause has been identified as the audit rights clause. Same thing here for limitation of liability. And as Carolyn mentioned earlier, this intelligence tool is not only looking for the exact phrase limitation of liability. As you import more documents into the tool, it will get more intelligent, and it will also be able to find the context of the clause or the section that it's looking at. It doesn't have to have that exact order of words or that exact phrase. It can, based on the information around it, it can sense that this is the limitation of liability clause, and it will identify it and extract that for your review. And of course, there still is a component to this where we can review the information before having this be updated into our agreement record. So for each of the clauses, we have the ability to delete or edit what's been extracted from the solution. So for example, if they've tracked or extracted a clause that is not important for you to track, we can go ahead and delete that, or if something was repeated. And then we also have the edit button right there as well. So if they didn't take the entire clause or they extracted the wrong section of the document, we can go ahead and edit that. And the solution will continue to learn that that was not the limitation of liability clause, for example. Once we're done reviewing all of this information, we can also see not only does the solution tell us what information was found, it can also tell you what information was not found. So these 3 items down here are clauses that are missing from this document. So this can be useful for if you're importing a third-party contract and you need to see for an MSA which clauses are not included in this third-party contract. You're able to see that here at the very bottom, that the solution was not able to find these 3 clauses in the document. Right. And once we've reviewed all of this information, we can go ahead and click Review Complete. And this will now bring all of the clauses and all of the data fields that have been extracted, and it's going to save that into an agreement record. So in the agreement record, all of the clauses, so all of the data fields, such as the agreement start and end date fields, that has all been brought in for us automatically from the extraction process. And the importance of having this data, taking it as words from the document and bringing it in as structured data is we can now run reports on it. And then more importantly, we can also create different workflows and reminders and calculate different dates based on the information that was extracted. So we have the start and end date fields completed here. And then down here, we also have some examples of different renewal date fields that you can have on your agreement record as well. So if you need to track things like renewal notice days or what date you have to notify the customer that their renewal is coming up, this can also be for termination dates as well. So some of these dates can be formula fields that can be auto-calculated based on off of other dates. And then once the date is 30, 60, or 90 days, in the future, it can also automatically send out a notification or an email to the user or the owner of this contract. So grabbing that data from the document can drive a lot of the downstream workflow and notification processes within the solution. Same thing applies for tracking those agreement clauses as well. So under this agreement clause related list, we're able to see a list of all the clauses that we were able to extract from that document. And instead of it just being, a paragraph of words that are in a document, it is now being stored on the agreement record as structured data as an agreement clause. If I were to drill down into a specific one of these records, I'll be able to see the actual clause and the text stored here as well. And this is going to be really helpful for tracking agreement clauses and also for reporting purposes as well, because now we can run a report on which contracts have this audit rights clause, for example, and what is the text that is actually contained in that clause. And this is something that we also mentioned in the presentation earlier, being able to keep track of your clauses through the legal playbook that you can maintain in Conga, being able to maintain that framework of different clauses that are important for you for an MSA versus an NDA, being able to insert clauses, swap out clauses that may be an alternate clause for a third-party paper that you're working with as well. And because we are tracking all this information, we can also now run reports on all of this data as well. Any data that we're tracking within Conga, whether it's a data field or a record such as clauses, we can now use that information on a report. So we were just talking about how it is important to track all of your agreement clauses. So this is an example of why that data is important. We can now run reports on clause usage. And this is an example of a dashboard that we can now create with that. So we can see which clauses have been extracted most often. We can see a record count. And if we click and in to view the report to drill down on it, we can see the actual agreements that contain each of these clauses as well. We can see which clauses are most oftentimes modified. So if we're doing any redlining with these contracts, we're able to track which clauses are modified during the redlining process, and also which ones are most oftentimes inserted from the legal playbook as well. So this is all giving you insight into the redlining process and some of the clauses that you're identifying in your third-party contracts, and then any contracts that you're also generating from your own template as well. Let's go ahead and show one more example of reports and dashboards we can run with the data that's being collected from the contract intelligence tool. This is a overview of the contracts you have in Conga in the repository. You can see all of the contracts you have broken down by type. So depending on what contract types you work with, we have MSAs versus NDAs, and we can see how many of each we currently have in the repository. And then that can also lead you to be able to track things like renewal value by quarter, by year, by month, and see all of the agreements you have in your pipeline based off of the status that they're currently in as well. Okay. And then the last thing I want to show here on the demo, I know that someone in the chat had mentioned or requested to see this as well. So we also have that smart search capability that Carolyn was mentioning earlier. So on the homepage of our contract management tool, we can default the smart search for end users to use. And this smart search, once again, you can search for a keyword, you can search for a sentence, and you can even use like natural language and use a compound sentence to search for a subset of contracts. So for this example, I am looking for all MSAs with a total agreement value over 250,000. And I've searched using a compound sentence, which means it has multiple parts to it. I'm searching for an MSA, and I'm also searching for any MSA with a total agreement value over 250,000. The solution is smart enough to recognize the different components you have in that sentence, and it will break that down into two parts. You're looking for anything with a total agreement value over 250,000, and then you're also looking for contracts that are an MSA. And as you can see here, we have our results here that everything is an MSA. And if we were to scroll over here, we can see the value. Everything is over 250,000. I can add on an additional filter here. So I want to see everything that's just in effect. So if I search for that now, it's going to filter the subset of contracts, and I will only be able to see contracts that are currently in effect. And it went from over 100 items to now just 68 items. So that was a third filter that I've just applied here. With this search, you can go ahead and apply any number of filters through different fields that you have within Conga, whether it's out of the box or any custom fields that you've added to the solution. And then any search that something that is important to you will need to be repeated, you can go ahead and save that search here as well, so that you don't have to enter in the search and all of the different filters every single time. Okay. And the last thing here is the task notifications that can be configured in the solution. I talked about how bringing that data in as actionable data. You can now take all of your dates, such as start dates, renewal dates, and you can now create tasks and notifications. So for example, renewal date in 60 days, that can be an automated task that can be created and sent out as a notification to the owner of that contract or anyone else who is involved in that contract renewal process as well. All right. So what we just walked through was, from here, we went to the intelligence tool, we imported a document. It was able to extract a set of clauses and fields. We were able to save that into an agreement record where we could track clauses for reports. We could use the smart search and be able to search throughout our entire repository. And then we were able to create different tasks and notifications for those dates and the different data fields that we extracted from our documents. Right. So that's all I had for the demo today. I think in the remaining time, I believe we're going to open up to any questions that anyone on the call has.
Yeah, and I oh, I hear a little echo. Colin, are you going to be kicking off the questions?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was like, trying to get on there. That was Isabella. Somebody beat me to it, but that was kind of mind blowing to see the functionality of the search and everything. Great job with the demo. Yeah, there's a lot of questions here. So let's do Yuka. You showed the example already for Yuka. The demo. So Karen asked, does this support non-English languages, say German?
Yes, it does include and support all Latin-based languages.
And then the next question came in from Sandra. What is the accuracy of the extraction?
Yeah, so you're going to see vendors out there that can offer, anywhere from like 60 to 80% accuracy is what they'll claim with their AI ML models. What we talked about and what you guys heard is our human verification component. So when that's layered over top, we offer up to 100% accuracy. So we actually have in-house attorneys who are trained on these models, on these contract types, and on a consistent language. And so they're looking for and they're verifying everything that the AI and the ML pull back. So with that human verification component, you can get up to 100% accuracy. Now you might not want that human verification component on all your contracts if you're uploading hundreds of thousands of legacy contracts into your CLM. So as Isabella showed you, you have options. Every time you go to upload a bulk of contracts, you can choose just OCR, you can choose automated, which is that AI ML, and you can choose to layer that human verification on top.
Perfect. And then we have a couple of product questions coming from Kelly, asking about the contract intelligence. Is this an additional product, the CFS bundle?
Yes, so it is. So earlier this year, we released Conga Contract Intelligence embedded into our contract lifecycle management solutions, including contracts for Salesforce or CFS. And so it is embedded into that product, and it is an additional fee into that edition that you have. And I think you had asked too about the pricing model. So it's actually consumption based, not license based. So you pay for kind of what you use with Congo Contract Intelligence.
Yeah, and then I think that kind of answers the package as well. Are everything's included if you pay for it, of course, on the homepage, right? Does it come with the standard package, or is it like a separate kind of package on usage?
with usage, there are tiers, I believe. You'll want to get with your account manager to make sure you're getting the best offer, and the most updated offer. But I believe there are tiers for that consumption-based usage and figuring out like kind of where you're going to fall. And in terms of the homepage, what you were seeing there was the CFS or the CLM like homepage, and Contract Intelligence or Conga Contract Intelligence is that technology behind it that's getting the data out, and so forth. So yes, you would have everything that is a part of your kind of homepage package.
Okay. Before I jump into my questions, Yuko's got a question on how many clauses are supported.
Yeah, so out of the box, awesome, Kelly. Just saw her note. So out of the box, we have over 1,200 terms and clauses that our models are trained to pull. And then we also have the option for you to create custom provisions or custom models to pull out things that are unique to your business that might not be part of our out of the box.
And a quick question on just to follow up on the clause. Do you guys have like, embedded playbooks that kind of support like, hey, I like this clause, I want to use it again? Do you have kind of something that kind of maneuvers around that, just from a user standpoint?
Carolyn, I could take that one if you'd like.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch.
Sure, my pleasure. So the playbook is really structured around your enterprise or your organization's legal language. So if you have a contract and you want to address standardizing it and maybe putting some of the repeating elements from that contract inside the clause library, that's when you start to build out your playbook. So an example of that might be your most favored nation clause. You may have a couple of versions of that, or termination clause, and you want to leverage having those versions of that particular clause available in a library. And then Conga CLM also allows you, as well as CFS, allows you to automatically insert that language in the generated document just based on the data that you've captured inside the record. So you've got the ability to manually select, where you've got some human decision making, as well as automating that process.
And then managing those kind of templates for the playbook, is that an automated thing? Can happen on the fly?
It's highly structured, so it's the tool. So when we talk about the playbook, we're talking about our clause library, and Conga Clause Library has a couple of different flavors that meet different enterprise use cases. Essentially, having the process of going through your contracts, identifying that language, that repeating or alternative language, is something that you do as part of your delivery. So essentially there's no automated tool for that. You're going to need to work with your legal experts, so whoever the legal SME is in your department. They're going to be helping to identify, well, this is the way this type of contract works. These are the repeating pieces. This is what can be made a template out of. And then from there, working with a partner like Slalom, for example, who implements Conga, we assist the client to structure that library based on their needs.
Perfect. And a quick follow-up question for both you and Andy. Like, what's the market? Like, what are the in-house teams looking when they're looking at Slalom to come in and help with Conga? What are the biggest identifiers to bring you guys in?
Great question. And so we have a mixture. And so I was reading the responses inside of the question at the top. There was a great survey. Thanks for putting that together. We have people kind of spread all over the topography in different places in terms of having a system they love that's great, that's automated, people that are maybe in a manual system, and even some folks that really don't really envision that automating their system or getting a contract management lifecycle. Having Slalom and partnering with Conga, coming in to essentially do a discovery on your legal operations, looking at what are your pain points, what would ideally address the biggest challenges you're facing in your business, is something we do at a as is and a to be process definition stage. Once that groundwork is laid, so we know as an enterprise how we want to work, how the roles want to work, then we have a foundation for structuring the configuration of the system so that it meets your needs. Because there's not one system that you just slap on any company. It's a highly versatile product with very powerful capabilities that need to be tailored to the needs of your organization.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mitchell. Do you have anything to add, Andy? Or Don't want to force you.
No.
That mute button.
It summed it up well. I mean, a lot of the takeaways from my slides, I mean, those are those key areas where, like Mitch says, we would dive into, designing this system for your organization. Every organization has their similar parts, but ultimately are unique in, how they work, how they function, how those teams work together, and that to-be state that we want to achieve, the collaboration, the working together of all of these departments together to make a cohesive system, something that flows easily and allows everyone to collaborate together in an efficient way. That's where that design phase comes in, so that we can build that to tailor to your specific needs. Yeah.
Got it. So my follow-up then is like, my final question to both Carolyn and Isabella is like, Conga's been a leader in this market for a very long time, right? So it's like we've seen the presentation, seen the UI UX, like, you guys are obviously doing something very right. But where I kind of challenge you is like, we're in a big flooded space right now where there's a lot of kind of competition in it. So to really kind of differentiate for, some of the viewers here today or listeners, what are some of your kind of differentiating things to separate you from just all the different competition out there?
Sure, I can start. So, two key differentiators that I see working with our customers in the market. One is the accuracy. So I know, someone had mentioned that in the chat is asking about the accuracy. That human verification component is huge. That's the only way you're going to get to up to 100% accuracy. And to our knowledge, we are the only vendor out there that offers that with in-house attorneys. So not contractors, not leveraging, others to not outsourcing that. We've got in-house attorneys that help us do that. And then the other piece is that maturity of the technology. So Conga had acquired Contract Wrangler in 2021 for their contract intelligence technology. It's been around for years. They've been training their models for years. Our chief product officer would say it when he was evaluating, vendors out there, it was the best that he's ever seen. And so that's why Conga purchased it, and we quickly integrated that to all of our CLM solutions, knowing that that the value that it brings our customers. And we've already started to see that with just releasing those integrations earlier this year. So I think those are two big differentiators for us.
Fantastic. I do not have any other questions, but I want to say this was a really very informative, fantastic from start to finish presentation. I think you guys hit nearly everything all the questions I had. I want to thank all the attendees for coming today. Really appreciate your time and your questions and just leaning in. I will follow up with a recording afterwards, or Conga will maybe with the recording. And if you have any other questions, feel free to. Andy and Mitchell, can I leave your name and number as well for if anybody's got follow-up questions, and Carolyn and Isabella?
Absolutely, Colin. Please go right ahead.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I don't see anything else coming in. There may be one other thing coming in from Sandra for legacy contracts. Is there auto tagging options to use a standard naming convention for all documents? Let's get this answered before we leave.
Isabella, is this one you might be able to help with, the functionality?
Yeah, let me take a look at the question again.
So I can speak to it a little bit while you're preparing as well. So that, when you are working with legacy contracts, there's two sources of data that you can pull. Obviously, that you're talking about standardized file names, and you want to leverage that. So maybe they're in a drive or a backup system. And then also there's the ability to do the intelligent search on the document content. So there is a lot of automatic behavior and AI, which does allow the extraction of the data. And that's really the goal behind the product, and the effort is to not just put legacy contracts in a repository as just a document with a name, but really to have a rich set of identifiers associated with that record, with that contract in your system. And that's what the product enables.
Okay, I think that's it. If Sandra's got any follow-up questions, or Kelly, please reach out to the team. I will follow up and share their information. With that, guys, we're past the top of the hour. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.